because there was a lot more free time and was able to do other things. So at most universities, there's a lot of help both from your teammates and from the entire structure. A lot of times you can, as a student athlete or as a student in general, there's so many resources to help you. So I luckily had really good habits from when I was younger in school. Always, just worked hard, but it's definitely tough to balance it for sure. It's not easy at all. And some professors are more understanding than others. From Gemma, who would you say are or were your biggest influences or coaches during your volleyball career so far? Oof, I've had so many. Definitely my family and my dad and my first. They've seen me through the whole journey from when I started playing at 10 or 11. And then other coaches that stick out are my coaches. My coach at Princeton, Sam Schweisky, guided me through 4 years as a young man and growing into hopefully a more mature man through college. Some awesome times with him, and he taught me a lot about not just volleyball but life. And then my coach at Lunenburg, my coach at Lunenburg, Stefan Hubner, was a huge influence on me for 3 years. I learned a bunch from him in the weight room and on the court. There's a lot of fundamental things in my game. Also Coach Nick Buser from my first year professionally in Switzerland, and then this past year in Berlin. But it's a great question, but I really take so many things from all my coaches in every situation. I've probably had, and the players I play with, I can't even begin to think about the amount of different players I played with on the beach, or player coaches when you're playing with an older player who has something to teach you. But those are the 2 or 3 that stick out the most immediately. But I try to learn something from every one of my teammates, or at least the good you can take from everyone, and the coaches too. But it's a good question.
Guys, thank you for your patience. Facebook Live is not happening. It just won't load to it. So what we've done is we're now broadcasting live on the Volleyball Island YouTube channel. Okay. So I've shared the link on the Facebook page to the YouTube channel. So if you have any other friends that you want to mention that in WhatsApp groups or whatever that is, direct them to the YouTube channel. Now we are live there. So we'll crack on, Cody, with the plan. Yeah. Thank you very much for saving the day there for the last 15 minutes.
Easy.
Some great questions coming in already, which is fantastic.
And to revisit Gemma's question really quick, she also said, what are your, besides just other coaches, the number one influence for me, who I think is the love of the game. So I fell in love with the game when I was 10, 11, when I was young, and it was just fun. And I got hooked, and I've been able to kind of cultivate and keep that love and the joy of the game all the way through my now going on 6 years as a professional. So when I think about younger kids and the youth game and kids who want to play in college and stick with it, I think the love and the passion have to be there. And so if you can find ways, and you guys, obviously, if you're tuning into a Q&A online, you probably have a big passion for the game, but the more you can do to cultivate that love for it, it's a great lifetime sport, and you can play it in so many different ways. I never thought I'd reach the professional level, but I've stuck with it, and because I just get such a joy out of the game and about the players and the people that I meet from it. So
great, good stuff, guys. Thank you. Thanks for the question. So look, Cody, now we're going to start again. Thank you sincerely for joining us this evening. It's phenomenal to have a player of your stature, with your career, coming on to inspire the next generation and the current generation of Irish volleyball players. I'd love to just thank Dan Mickle, who's helped facilitate this. Dan will be a friend of ours, mutual friend of ours, who has linked us in. So I just want to give Dan a shout out for him setting up the program. This is part of a virtual camp that we're running this week. 3 days. We have over 130 players have signed up to it, which will include a series of Q&As and webinars in different topics to do with anti-doping, for example. nutrition, how to get the right mindset. We're going to be touching on a few things around fitness and ball skills and things like that as well the next few days. So, Cody, you're very, very, very welcome to Virtual Island, and thanks for taking part in tonight's session.
Thanks for having me. It's awesome.
So, look, those that missed it, we're having some issues with the Facebook page, so it's now being streamed on our YouTube channel. So if you want to signpost anyone to that, that would be fantastic. So, Cody, can you maybe just give us a bit of an overview about your career to date and the teams and the clubs that you've played with?
Yeah, definitely. I grew up playing grass doubles and a lot of beach doubles. So in Colorado, there were a lot of tournaments over the summer where a whole big field would be covered in courts, and then there'd be maybe 2 or 3 sand courts. And if you were an open level or the top level players, you got to play on the sand courts. But I spent 7 or 8 years playing grass doubles, started playing with my dad, and did start playing indoor club volleyball at about 14 with whatever boys we could get together in Colorado. Not a lot of boys volleyball where I'm from, so we'd get 8 or 9 guys together, and we would play again in the local men's leagues. So play men's B and then men's double B. So when I was younger, I'd get beat up on a lot by 40, 50, 60-year-old men who were still playing volleyball, and then kind of worked my way up and played through a couple club seasons. I played lacrosse and tennis, played a bunch of different sports throughout high school, but finally committed to volleyball full-time my senior year. I was saying before to Shannon, I ended up taking a year off after high school, coached some teams, played a lot, and didn't take any college classes, and was very, very lucky to get recruited by Princeton, BYU, and USC, and ended up being very happy with my choice to go to Princeton, both with academics and with volleyball. Was a 4-year player there for the Tigers in New Jersey. And I think every year kind of continued to surprise myself. Just kept getting better. And by senior year, I was just in love with the game and playing at a high level, and had some opportunities with the second USA team or the USA development teams, and decided I wanted to keep playing after university, and found a contract playing in Switzerland with the help of an agent. So my first year overseas was as an opposite in Switzerland. And in that year, I ended up transitioning to being an outside hitter, kind of a coach decision and my own decision for my future. And ended up getting injured of that year, really bad ankle injury, was out for 4 months, and thought I would never play overseas again, but got another chance the next season to join a team in Lüneburg, just outside of Hamburg, and played 3 years there at a club that I really loved and a great culture. And I think we might see a match later from that team. And then 3 years there, and I was able to attract the attention of German powerhouse Berlin Recycling Volleys. And I was there last season, and waiting to see about next year. So
cool.
It's been a wild ride. And in the summer, I've gotten to train a good amount and play with Team USA as well. I forgot about all the summer USA ball. So I've had but that's long-winded, but hopefully brief overview of my career.
No, fantastic. And I presume that representing USA was always an ambition of yours growing up.
That's right. Yeah, that was always the goal and the driving force to continue to play and reach the highest level, is to play for my country and to represent my dad has been working at USA Volleyball for about 35 years, but I grew up in Colorado Springs, where we had an Olympic training center for a long time. And so when I was 14, 15 and under, my heroes were Clay Stanley, Reed Priddy, these amazing players on the national team. And and I'm getting to live the dream and still chase the Olympics and the big goals of playing for the national team, which I've achieved, but it's just a journey and a process, and you keep working, and still just trying to become the best player I can be.
Fantastic. So that was kind of one question actually I had noted for later on. Obviously, you referenced there your father, John, would be a world-renowned volleyball coach, wrote many books.
Yeah.
I was kind of wondering for players that are watching this, younger players that may have parents that coach them, how did you kind of handle that dynamic of, you know, your dad being your coach basically for a few years, and the awkward moments where he's possibly, you know, maybe telling you or trying to obviously coach you and guide you, and you not getting frustrated with him because of your dad? How did you handle that kind of situation?
That's a great question. I got to give a lot of credit to my dad because he was very, very good about never overcoaching me or pushing me into the sport. It got to the point where now that I have become a professional, I maybe wish he had coached me a little bit harder when I was younger. But he did a great job of making sure I was having fun with the sport starting when I was 10. And like I said, he never forced me into anything, but the dynamic can be difficult. But one of the things that, if there's parents out there listening, one of the things he always used to say to me that I love, that's become a thing now, is, you know, be driving back after a tournament or a game or practice, and he would just say, "I love to watch you play." And that meant a lot. And if I had questions about the game or my technique, I could then bring them up, but he would never really hammer me on anything. He has maybe a pet peeve for missed serves. So that was a theme that ran throughout my career, but I also like serving in and being able to play volleyball. But I just give a lot of credit to him, and for the parents out there, just make sure that, again, the love of the game is the number one priority, and the kids are having fun.
Sure. Great answer, Cody. Thank you. I think what we're going to try and do now is we're going to try and watch a couple of your highlights from the Lüneburg versus Berlin recycling volleys game from the German Cup semi-final a couple of years ago. So bear with me whilst I share this now. Obviously, we're having a few internet issues, so if it's a little bit kind of fragmented, please forgive me, and ignore the Bruce Springsteen videos there on the right hand side whilst I play this. So this is your highlights reel. So can you see that, Cody? Yeah, that's clear enough.
Yeah.
So it's your number 5 there, white 5. That's right.
Yep.
So we have about 2 minutes of your best hits and blocks, I suppose. And I'm kind of wondering, look, you're jumping so high. Like, is there a particular gym exercise or something that you would work on to get to those heights?
Yeah, it's a kind of a whole holistic thing. I mean, there's a bunch of things that come to my mind right away, and that's I did play a lot of beach and grass volleyball growing up, and I was a blocker, and so I spent a lot of time jumping as high as I could when I was younger. There's definitely strength and weight training exercises you can do for the lower legs, deadlifts, rear foot elevated split squats, but then also mobility, ankle mobility, hip mobility, making sure you've got a big double arm lift. So it depends on the player, and it depends on where they're at physically. And I think one of the secrets is that there is no secret. It just takes a lot of hard work. And I was lucky with, obviously, some of my genetics to give me some fast twitch muscle fibers, but it's been a lot of work over a lot of years in the gym. And then I've always just enjoyed seeing how high I can jump and just kind of going for flight. But it's kind of a whole holistic thing: sleeping well, drinking a lot of water, eating well. All these things kind of have to come together.
So you're an athlete 24/7 effectively.
Yeah, definitely. Yep. I
just kind of paused that there. I tried my best to get at the right moment just to see the height that you're actually getting to, which, your feet aren't too far off the bottom of the net. I know it's maybe a dodgy angle. When you're going up for an attack like that and a spike, what's going through your mind? Like, what are you looking for? Are you looking at the defender's arms? Are you looking at their eyes? What are you thinking about when you're in the air about to hit the ball?
Yeah. As I'm going up to attack in my approach, I'm reading the pass first. and seeing the setter's delivery. And then once it leaves the setter's hands, I've got a pretty good idea of what the trajectory is going to look like. And then I'm focusing on the ball, but then also in my peripheral, I'll pick up a lot of information from the blockers and maybe the defender, but oftentimes just the block right there in front of me. And what's going through my mind? Not a whole lot. Really trust my training at that point and all the work that I put in, because when you're in the game, I think you should really just get lost in the moment of competition. So if you're training and you're working on a certain shot, sure, you can fill your mind with kind of the mechanics of how you want to hit that shot. But the more I'm learning about the mental game, when you are really in competition in that moment, you want to keep a lot of the focus external. So where do I want to put this ball? Where do I, your body will, the internal intelligence of your body is pretty amazing, and how it solves different problems for you. And again, you rely on all the training time you put in. So
sure.
There's not necessarily one thing that I'm really holding in the front of my mind. I'm just letting my body do what it knows to do.
Yeah. And I presume a lot of that comes from kind of repetition and practice. You're kind of then trusting your own abilities and the work you've put in beforehand.
Totally. Yeah, it does come from years and years. So again, it just depends on the player. Yeah, but it's a good question. I don't what's going through my mind. Usually just kill or find a way to score. It depends on the situation. If you're in system and you have a good situation, it's definitely terminate. Sometimes if you're off the net and a bit more trouble, then maybe you have to find a different solution for that ball.
Yeah, sure. Okay. And is it the same then when you're blocking? So it's kind of instinct effectively, or is anything kind of particularly that you're looking to get your body into a certain position?
Yeah, technique wise in blocking, I've had many hours and years of doing what we call read blocking, which I think is the most important skill for a middle blocker, for any blocker on the beach or in indoors. And that's what we call ball setter, ball hitter. And that's the basics of it. But if I'm sitting there at the net, I'm going to get a read on the pass, the ball, take a quick glance at the setter. And the setter is going to tell the ball where it's going to go, right? It's just a dumb ball. So there's a lot of good setters who are neutral for a long amount of time, but depending on the pass, you can really get a good idea and a read of where they're going and what trajectory that's going to take by years and years of watching setters set. And so you really want to look at that setter. They're going to tell you where the ball is going to go. And then as soon as you see the trajectory of that set, ball setter, ball, then you can lock in on the hitter. And that's, again, these reading things of what a hitter looks like in the air. So it's not, I think too many younger players especially get too focused on the ball, because the other 4 or 5 skills, a focus on the ball is helpful. But with blocking, the setter and the hitter will hit the ball and they'll get to it. Otherwise, you don't have anything to worry about. So I got really good after a lot of years of picking up cues from the setters and the hitters. But you have to be looking at the right things, I think. So as I block, it's a lot of that pattern over time, setter, okay, and then I'm reading the hitter. And we're lucky at the pro level, we get to watch film on certain hitters. So I love to watch film on the opposites I'm going to be playing against.
Yep.
And again, that just is one less thing you got to think about, because you probably know a few different situations where they like to go, and your number one job as a blocker is to take away their favorite shot and make them do something they aren't quite as comfortable with. And there are matches where you might not stuff block a single ball, but you might be doing your job really, really well, and you're making it really uncomfortable for that hitter.
Yeah, sure. Okay. I've just paused the video here just at the winning point, I think it is. We're going to show a little bit more detail about this match in a little while, but I just kind of wanted to know what's going through your mind there when that happens.
Yeah, it was just pure joy and elation. I'd been at that club for 3 years, and we had built a really special culture. We had a rare thing where we were able to keep 11 out of 12 players two years in a row. So that group of 12 guys on and off the court, as with the coaches, had just a really tight knit group and had been together a long time and just put in a huge body of work. And for us to come down from being 0-2 in front of our home fans, and we were down, I think 15-18, and we were down 10-12 in the fifth. And it was just kind of a classic underdog come from behind sports moment that I really don't have words for. It was just indescribable. And yeah, it's just really special. So just pure joy and elation, and so happy to have accomplished that with that group. Great group of guys and friends all I have still to this day. So that's, I mean, I get cheesy here, but that's another thing from you learn over your years, your career, is that these championships, these wins, these losses, they fade, but the friendships last forever and the relationships last forever. And so that's something I've taken from my dad and his relationship with Long Ping, who was a legendary Chinese player who ended up just being lifelong friends and is actually my godmother. But anyway, the moral is, again, the people that you're going on this volleyball journey with, you know, those relationships mean a lot, and they'll stick with you. So it's just another important thing to remember, no matter what age you are.
Sure. You mentioned then, which I found interesting, kind of culture, the word culture. And I've kind of read a couple of articles and a couple of interviews that you've done in the past, and you seem to reference that quite a lot. So I'm kind of wondering, how important do you believe a strong team culture is for a team to grow and to be successful?
Yeah, I think it's vital. I mean, there's two sides of the argument. There's some people that say you shouldn't pay attention to it, but I'm more of the school that you're going to have a culture whether you are deliberate about it or not. So you might as well be a little bit deliberate about it. And from a volleyball or from a team, from a growth standpoint, I think it's these things that are talked about in research a lot: growth mindset, being able to have the freedom to make mistakes, a team that supports each other even when things get really tough. If you watch the TV broadcast of this match, it's I thought our coach did an amazing job of, even in the hardest moments, of sticking to the message and being consistent to what the team has decided that they believe in and they stand for. And for us, that was joy and hard work. And we had even had a mindfulness coach actually that year who was working with us on being able to stay in the moment and focusing on the things that we can control. So there's so much in the world, not just on the volleyball court, but off the volleyball court, that's out of your control. And the more that you can, through a meditation practice, through breathing, through yoga, through however you find that for you, being able to stay connected to the moment. We can't control the past. We unfortunately can't fully control the future, but you can control the moment you're in right now. And so what does that look like? How do we practice that? What does that mean? And you can control your attitude, your effort, your hustle, your nutrition. There's all these things that are always in your control no matter what. And it doesn't do you a whole lot of good too often to worry about the things that are outside of your control.
Sure.
So how can we take advantage of that in the best way? And so, yeah, we lived that at Lunenburg and at other teams I've been on, but that culture was pretty special. Like I said, we just were able to keep a group together like some colleges are able to do, or teams, for a long time. And just got to share a really special moment with this victory.
So as a player then, to kind of sum up, to contribute to a positive culture, to help create, to be a positive team player, it's that hard work and consistency and playing with a smile on your face, I suppose.
Yeah. I think, again, it's how do you contribute? You do your best to control what you can control every day and make your teammates better, and yourself. The better your teammates get, the rising tide lifts all ships, lifts all the boats. So if you make your teammate better by 2-3% for one day, that's going to help your practice environment. It's going to help them. So it's such a cool part about the team sport of volleyball. But as far as contributing to the culture, yeah, I think now it's going to sound like a broken record, but controlling what you can control. And one thing I remember with this team in particular is that our opposite, Ryan Slater, said, choose joy. because it's choice you can make, is you can choose joy in any given situation or throughout the year and throughout the time together. And this team did a really good job of choosing joy and choosing to go through the journey in that way. So
choose joy. I like it. It's a nice summary for a lot of teams. You know, I think if you choose enjoy, then win, lose, whatever happens, you're not going to be far wrong. You know. Cool.
Yeah, that's true.
So we have more footage here from this game. So what I thought, we'd kind of go through certain segments of it, and just really to get your insights and what your mindset was at certain times in the game. So just gonna press play here. There is sound on the YouTube version, but I've kind of muted it because it's not coming through great. So this is the start of the match, right? First point. Do you get nervous?
Yeah, definitely. I think all athletes and all people get nervous. And this thing that separates maybe a professional from when I was younger is that I've just gone through many more situations like this. So I think an important thing there is to realize that you're getting nervous, accept that you're getting nervous, and or a lot of athletes maybe then turn it into, call it excitement, and say, oh wow, yeah, I'm actually excited now. I'm not, my body maybe is having a nervous response, but it's just excitement, and you have to learn to dance with it because it's going to be there. It's always going to be there, and you do get better at handling it and processing it, and again getting back to that present moment and that right, you know, it's okay, I can feel all these things, the fans, the warm up, the build up of the match, and then, you know, once that ball's in the air, then you can start getting back to the present moment. But it can be difficult, especially when you're playing in front of, you know, if you start to think about, again, the things you can't control. So you can't control that there's a bunch of 2,000, whatever, 3,000 fans from your hometown that you, but your question was about nerves, and I think they're always there, even for the best players in the world. They just get better at dealing with them.
Okay, and would you have any kind of pre-match superstitions or any particular things, any particular process that you like to go through to get ready to step onto the court for that first point?
Over time I've realized that the calmer and quieter my mind is before I play, the more consistently I'm able to perform. So for me, that has taken many forms over the years. At Princeton, I started reading books before, you know, in the locker room. I would just, in that kind of dead time, I would take out a book and read a few pages just to get my mind on something else. And I know other players, it's different. They need to get really hyped up, and but I'm one of those players that needs to kind of come down and relax and be in a still place. So that can be different for any player, but you can experiment with it. But I think if you see one of those two ways, if you need to go down a little bit or upregulate, that might be the biggest piece of advice. So for me, I do some breathing and just whatever I can do to find a calm, quiet place before I step out and do my whole warm-up routine.
Okay. So the game doesn't start too well, Cody. You guys end up, I'm going to fast forward a little bit, end up 2 sets down pretty quickly. So what's going through your mind here? You're about to go 2 down. What are you thinking? Is it game over in your head? What are your thoughts?
And again, through just through training and practice and the culture that we had there, it was all right, next set, next point, next ball. And you could spend a bunch of mental energy and worry and emotions and time on thinking of, oh, we could have had that set if I had this point and that point back there, I should have made that play, yada yada yada. We definitely all have those thoughts, and I probably had 30 of those in this game or more. I was watching the replay and going, oh my gosh, I'm so bad on defense. You know, why was it? Got to get that ball. But the best players are then able to just reset over and over over again, kind of take that rest in between points, and then get back to that hyper focus and that hyper being in the moment again.
Yeah.
And so that's what we said. I think, our coach probably had a few pointers for us on maybe some things we needed to change and focus on. I remember needing to make some adjustments in defense and in blocking. But he also was saying, hey, there's some things that are working well. So it's just a few changes and keep battling, get back out there.
So in that situation then when, look, and we've all been there, you're down, you're a couple of sets down. How important is kind of leadership in that perspective in terms of players being leaders on the court or coaches being leaders off the court? Like how much does kind of the character of that kind of play a role when you're really kind of up against it?
Yeah, it's crucial. If you have your leaders or your best players, maybe coaches, leaders, whoever they are on the court, not embodying kind of those things, if they're worried about the last set or they're talking about things that already happened or not, again, not focused on that present moment, that I think that could be pretty damaging. And so it's important to remember too, it's not just your team captain or your coach. You've got a bunch of leaders out there. I mean, ideally everyone's a leader in their own way. So just kind of asking yourself what you can control to help make the team better at any given moment.
Okay, great. So at this stage, you still believed you had a chance? You still believed you could come back and win 3-2? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll fast forward a little bit here, quite a bit actually, to 12, I think it's 12-12. In the last set, let me just get my notes right here. About there will do. So the crowd's getting up. This is a timeout, 12-12. What's the conversation in that timeout? What are you talking about?
I don't know if I can remember exactly what was said. I think again, it just was focused on tactically that rotation, what we were facing in that moment. So, okay, we knew we were facing Russell, maybe Jendrick, and then, or I guess Jendrick's now in the back row. So Russell, Legoff, and Tuia maybe in the front row. So what from a lot of film and preparation beforehand, what that serve's going to look like. What their defense and block are going to look like in that rotation, and then how our block is going to look against them. So if maybe you're focused on any one of those things, but then again, once the ball gets in the air, I'm dead focused on that ball and playing that point. There's not a lot of room for overthinking at that point. So, Slater comes up with a big kill for us, and then we have our middle blocker from Hamburg, from the place that this match is being played in, grew up in that city and goes back to the service line at 13-all, makes a couple of pretty amazing serves.
I think we'll just kind of talk through kind of the rest of the matches. We're almost there now, 14-13, I think it is.
Yep.
Is there any points in matches? I think we got another timeout here. Is there any point in a match where we mentioned at the start about nerves? Is there any point where you ever feel more pressure than another? You say it's 7-6 in the first set. Does that feel different to being 14-13 in the fifth set?
Ideally, you would say no, but it definitely does feel different. We're humans and we're really good at telling stories, and the points always tell a certain story. And so that can really affect you and get to you. But for me, again, what's the key? It's getting back to that present moment and getting just lost in it. And that can come from, touching something, saying something, seeing one thing, or, but then next ball again, right here. And I think that's a thing a lot of people love from sport, is that you get lost in the moment like this. And everything else can just fade away. So, yeah.
So you guys obviously the underdog there. Do you prefer being an underdog? I mean, you mentioned at the start about, you love the underdog story. Do you prefer going into a game not expecting to win, or do you prefer being right? Okay, we're in charge here. Or is there a difference?
It's a good question. I don't know if I have a preference. I've learned to love both in their own way, because when you're the underdog, there's classic, I don't know, it's Irish or American or whatever kind of fight and grit that it takes to beat the favorite. But a lot of it's just story. And so then when you are the favorite, that can kind of come back to bite you too. It's a great challenge to not drop to the level of the team you're playing. So the great players are able to maintain their level and their consistency no matter who they're playing. And that's a huge challenge in sport, is consistency.
Yeah.
Kind of a topic for, a whole nother thing. But the question was whether I prefer one or the other. They just both come with different challenges. As an underdog, you can psych yourself out and maybe convince yourself that the team that you're playing is maybe better than they are. Maybe you end up making more errors than you would and not just playing your game. There's all sorts of things that can happen, but you also have to respect their level. So, and then again, from the flip side, when you are mentally seeing or thinking that you're better than that opponent, then there's a bunch of traps you can fall into there too. So just finding ways to play your game no matter what the situation is.
Cool. Okay. So there's kind of something there. Just obviously you've played obviously a fair bit now outside of the States. Like how do you find settling into playing Switzerland and then Germany? Do you find it easy or difficult to kind of adapt to different cultures and languages and things like that? How do you handle that situation? Because being a professional, and some of our players watching this are going to aspire to that, it's something they're going to have to be prepared for, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. The pro lifestyle is unique. I mean, I think one thing I tell at least players who are in, some players, you just have to think that you're going over there for a job and you're really going to move into that culture full time. And at the beginning, for a lot of us, you're moving across the world to take a minimum salary job, minimum wage, and it just happens to be volleyball. So kind of preparing yourself for that whole life experience, if it wasn't volleyball, and then you get the great gift of volleyball on top of that. But it's a little bit hard to think back now, because for most of my adult life I've been in Europe now for 8 months out of the year, because Germany and Switzerland have kind of become normal feeling to me. I'm speaking in conversational in German now. I was lucky to put the effort in there for my first year, and had a member of the fan club actually have German lessons with me weekly. We'd have coffee and kuchen, we'd had coffee and cake, and he would slowly teach me the language. And I think that's pretty important. But when you're coming for such a short time, just to respect the culture, and that's really cliche, learn the language you can, but I think the main thing to remember is that the volleyball brings everyone together. So a lot of these teams will have 6 different nationalities, and maybe the coaches are 2 or 3 different nationalities, but you guys all share this love of the sport that you have. And so you can focus on that, and that can bring you together in the way that you conduct your day to day. But it definitely is a challenge. And if you don't really love the sport, it can be a really difficult experience. And just like moving to any place would be, you're upending all your habits and in your life. And so just something you're going to have to be ready to adjust to. Athletes are masters at overcoming adversity, but when you move across the world, and there's going to be adversity thrown at you from a bunch of different ways. So you got to be prepared for that.
And so obviously then you're back in Colorado now. You got home from Germany,
yeah,
just, I presume, before the commercial flights and everything. stopped. What are you doing to keep yourself kind of fit and maintaining your skills, I suppose, during this time? Any advice for the guys watching from home?
Yeah. If you're stuck at home, there's still plenty of stuff you can do with your body weight and your flexibility. Shoulder mobility, thoracic spine mobility, ankle mobility, hip mobility. These are all huge for the longevity of your career. There's a bunch of resources online. You can kind of dig into that, or you can reach out to me if you're looking for kind of at-home workouts to do or yoga. I'm really lucky. We have a lot of space out here in Colorado. So I was actually even able to set up a grass net, and I have 6 or 7 volleyballs so I can go serve. I've seen all kinds of crazy creative things on YouTube with rebounding walls and stuff. But if you have none of that, if you just have a cell phone or an internet connection like you have right now, you can, I think for most players, and something I didn't really understand until I was older in the game, is the impact that visualization can have. So you guys know Michael Phelps, he's an amazing swimmer. One of the things that they consistently tell a story about him is that he would go to bed every night and picture the perfect race in his mind. And as he got older, he would picture problems like his goggles filling up with water, or missing a kick turn, and how he would react. And you can build the whole world in your mind with as many details as possible. And when they actually do the research, they're finding that your brain is really bad at knowing whether your very vivid visualization is a memory or is something you actually experienced. And so you can build these mind volleyball palaces where you're imagining matches or serves coming at you or a skill that you're doing with incredible detail. And you could go through a whole match in your mind and think about ways, what it'll look like from inside your body, outside your body, where the ball's going to be. Again, you can just pack it full with smells and sounds and feelings. And as you're going to bed, or as you're watching highlights is a great way to kind of feed your subconscious with that of great players that you want to emulate. My dad's always jealous of me because I can, in the 60s and 70s, you had to wait for the one monthly magazine, and you had the 2 or 3 volleyball pictures and now you can go on at any point in time on your cell phone and watch the greatest players in the world. And find ways to emulate them. So even with just an internet connection, there's a bunch of ways to improve. It doesn't even have to be your own highlights. Like, I spent years when I was younger watching Jiba and Dante and Clay Stanley and Reed Priddy, the players that I was looking up to, and their matches, and how they did things and why they did things, and just asking asking questions of the video. But then again, your mind can just be so powerful in the way that it can visualize. And even now that I'm thinking back to that game, I knew I was going to be playing against USA teammates of mine and players that I had played against for a while. And for days leading up to that match, I was watching film on that, on the other hitters or the 2 hitters that I knew, and probably watched. Again, we have the advantage of that as a professional, but we have access to that video. But I knew it so quickly that I was able to take advantage of it in matches, and you saw it pay off where you get 3 or 4 solo blocks on someone because you just kind of know where they're going, maybe even before they do. So
sure. And that's your phone ringing, Cody, is it? It's not mine.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, you're okay. Hey guys, you guys are on the Zoom there. If you have any questions, please type them in the Q&A. We have one from Una, which we'll ask now. But yeah, if there's anything you want to ask, feel free to type it in there. So Cody, we have a couple of questions coming in. One from Una. She would like to know, what's your funniest volleyball moment that you've been involved in?
Oh man, there's been so many. I feel like each match I play is you find one situation that you've never seen before ever in your life. If you go to my Instagram, there was a funny situation that happened a few matches ago where I killed the ball off of the opposite's leg, and right as the referee turned to watch, it came and hit him in the face. And so that was just from a few matches ago. You can see that. We love referees, but he had glasses on and he was bloody, and they had to stop the match. And
wow, that escalated.
There was other funny moments. I was playing in a final one time where the other team and the other partner got so upset that he walked off the court and just left the match. And they were down 10 points in the second set, and he just left. And so then to finish out the final in front of 2,000 people, there was another person who walked on to kind of be the stand-in player. So that was pretty funny. But there have been there's so many. I gotta keep thinking. Another question: are there many setters who pinpoint where their spiker will hit, other than a spiker aiming to hit the ball? Yeah. Okay, that's a good. I think I know what you're getting at. I think your job as a setter is you do both, especially with the middle hitter. There might be situations where you know that you're going to give the middle a certain ball that should hit one way or the other, but the best setters in the world seek to give a hittable neutral ball every time, and let the hitter make that decision. So as a setter, I really wouldn't be thinking, oh, I want my outside to hit line, so I'm going to set him further. I'm sure that there's some that might do that in certain situations, but most of the time they're trying to stay neutral and as deceptive as possible, and then give their hitters the best opportunity to kill the ball in a neutral spot for them. So if I'm a hitter, I want to be able to hit every shot that I can hit. I think, but you can ask me again if I wasn't quite getting at that.
We have a question. Yeah, feel free. Well, Alex, I was going to say, Alex Graves is asking there. Alex is our national senior women's team captain and beach player as well. She is. This is a shameless plug. She is joining our Q&A session tomorrow evening with Izzy Carey on at 8 p.m. as well. So Alex is asking, what have been the biggest learnings for you as you've grown and built your mental strength, stroke game as a player, and any tips for younger players that are wanting to build mental toughness?
Awesome. Yeah, Alex, great question. I think that's one thing that has separated me is, I'm going to sound like a broken record on this thing, but controlling what I can control. And I think that's true mental toughness. And so a lot of players think mental toughness is, gritting your teeth and getting through stuff really hard. And it's actually just getting back to as quickly as you can, whether it's an injury, a setback, a lost point, an error, the more quickly you can get back to controlling what's in your control. There's a huge list: attitude, effort, focus, hustle, nutrition, everything outside the court, being a good teammate. So I think that's a huge part of mental strength and toughness. And then in the game, an external focus of attention has been huge for me. And there's a lot of research coming out. There's a book called The Inner Game of Tennis that guided me a lot, that kind of set me on this journey. But Gabriel Wolf is doing a lot of research recently that's showing that an external focus of attention can be very beneficial in terms of performance aspect. So we'll just take weightlifting, for example. If the cue is push the ground away instead of flex your knees and your ankles, the push the ground away cue is going to have a 5 or a 10% huge effect on performance. And so when I think about my mental game in the match and cueing and just letting the internal intelligence of my body take over, the more I can keep the focus on the ball and external and outside of my mechanics and all the things that I can get in my mind that I still struggle with this today. It's just saying, okay, where do I want this ball to go? Toss it, trust it. Again, keeping that focus external, the more you can practice that, the better. So my other tips for resources are I invested in, a mindfulness app. They're for free everywhere, but getting to that point of meditation and stillness. I started through yoga, but then I kind of found my own meditation practice that I can stick to in the morning and the evenings. And that just helps me get back to the present moment and not worry about the past and the future as much. And that can be vital in the game and outside the game. So, but I'd love to talk with you more about it. Those are kind of the first 3 things that kind of come to mind.
Sure. We have another question in here about what kind of sets is best for a quick attack. Do you think that sets where the ball continues on past the spiker's hand or one where as soon as it gets to the spike as highest point, it will start to dip? If you're not sure, you can see that there, Cody.
Yeah. Good question. It depends on the situation, and it depends on your hitter. So I don't have like a 100% rule for you. If there's one way that's better than the other, it's going to depend on what kind of offense you're running, what the other middle blocker is doing, and what kind of set your hitter likes to hit. So I just played last season with Sergei Grankin. He's a 3-time Olympian, I think, gold medalist, one of the greatest setters in the history of the game. And he doesn't set the same ball for all of the middle attackers that he has. We had 3 middle attackers, and he would give them the ball in certain situations differently because of who they were physically and their arm swings and who they were facing. So I think there's just way more context from the game and I don't want to give you like this is the perfect set. But if your coach is saying, hey, we want to set this ball for the middles and then these middles are going to adjust to that set, then yeah, you're going to stick with that. So my answer is it depends.
Very cool. Shifra is calling in from Luxembourg. What are your future goals that you're planning for or hoping to achieve?
Yeah, my final goal is to play in the Olympic Games at some point for Team USA. I'm 28 now and kind of entering the prime of my volleyball career. So I got a little bit of a late start, but again, I'm just focusing on becoming the best player I can be. So finding the best situations to put myself in that day. And so today, what am I doing? Waking up, did some yoga. I'll be doing a weight session later and serving some balls and making sure I'm drinking a lot of water, hydrating, hitting my nutrition, getting enough calories, eating some good food. And it's just a journey. So my goal is to become the best that I can be, and we'll see where that takes me. But I would like to hope that one day it would be at the Olympics. But that's the biggest goal. I've already achieved so many of my goals, and in playing Division I, playing professionally, and so it's just all been awesome.
Great. Cody, just to kind of wrap up, any last kind of piece of advice that you would give a younger player, maybe someone who's looking for a career in volleyball? What kind of how would you summarize up? I know you've given the last hour full of advice and insights, but what kind of, in a couple of sentences, what would be the nugget of advice you would like people to kind of take away from this evening's session?
I would say it's control what you can control when it comes to in even situations like now with that the whole world is in with a global pandemic. How can you help people? What can you do for your game? There's so much that is in our control. This comes from a book, Man's Search for Meaning, for me, kind of guided my life a lot, where this guy's in the Holocaust, and he's kind of saying the difference between some of the people that would survive and didn't. A lot of it was chance, but even in the worst situation that humans have endured, we still have the freedom to choose our own way. And that's just incredibly powerful to me, whether it's volleyball or life. So that's the main takeaway. And then also that the work that you put in, no one can ever take that away from you. So that's just another powerful message that I think is important to hear. Hard work, fantastic. I think, to always pay off in its own way. And if there's another last one, there's a Larry Bird quote I like that says something along the lines of, he says he's got a theory that if you give 100%, somehow things will always work out in the end. And I'm a believer in that too.
Fantastic. So, Cody, we're going to focus on the things we can control. We're going to play on the importance of visualization. We're going to choose our own way. And then finally, we're also going to choose joy. How about that?
Awesome.
Perfect.
Love it.
Thank you sincerely for your time this evening. Some great stuff. And look, on behalf of Volleyball Ireland, we really appreciate the time you've taken and given us today. So Thank you very much.
And feel free to reach out to me. Thank you, Volleyball Ireland. You guys can reach me through my email. It's my Kessel Cody, last name, first name @gmail, or through social media. Just reach out with any more questions that you have. I'm happy to help. So thanks for tuning in, taking the time.
Cheers. Thanks a lot, Cody. Cheers,
Thanks.
guys. Thanks.